Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast, Season 2, the show where I read the Tanakh and provide my own interpretations of what I think it all means. This week's episode falls on the 15th of Av, 5785, August 9th, 2025, the Torah portion for Vayetchanan, but we're going to be continuing with the book of Kings 1, that's Melachim 1, chapters 19 through 22. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the book this episode. As always, I want to remind everybody I'm not a professional scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the scripture. You can follow along in English via Chabad.org. Without further ado, let's jump on in. Kings 1, chapter 19, verse 1. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and all that he had killed all of the prophets with the sword. Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So may the gods do, and so may they continue, unless at this time tomorrow I will make your life like the life of one of them." And he saw, and he arose and went for his life. And he came to Beersheba, which belonged to Judah, and he left his servant there. He went to the desert, a distance of 1 day's travel, and he came and sat under a juniper, and requested that his soul die. He said, "Enough now, Lord. Take my soul, as I am not better than my forefathers." He lay and slept underneath one juniper. And behold, an angel touched him, and said to him, "Rise and eat." And he looked, and at his head there was a cake baked on hot coals, and a flask of water. He ate and drank, and again he lay down. And the angel of the Lord returned to him again, and touched him, and said, "Arise and eat, as the journey is too much for you." And he arose and ate and drank. And he went with the strength of this meal 40 days and 40 nights up to the mountain of the Lord, Horeb. And he came there to the cave, and he lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have torn down your altars, and they have killed your prophets by the sword. And I have remained alone, and they seek my life to take it." And he said, "Go out and stand in the mountain before the Lord. Behold, the Lord passes, and a great and strong wind splitting mountains and shattering boulders before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, not in the earthquake was the Lord. After the earthquake, fire, not in the fire was the Lord. And after the fire, a still small sound. And as Elijah heard, he wrapped his face in his mantle. And he went out, and he stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, a voice came to him, and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have torn down your altars, and they have killed your prophets by the sword. And I alone remain, and they seek my soul to take it." And the Lord said to him, "Go, return to your way to the desert of Damascus, and you shall come and anoint Hazael to be king over Aram. And Jehu the son of Nimshi you shall anoint as king over Israel. And Elisha the son of Shaphat from Abel Meholah you shall anoint to be a prophet in your stead. And it will be, those who escape the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill, and those who escape the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill. And I will leave over in Israel 7,000, all the knees that did not kneel to the Baal, and every mouth that did not kiss him." And he went from there, and he found Elisha the son of Shaphat, as he was plowing. 12 yoke were before him, and he was with the 12th. And Elijah went over to him, and threw his mantle over him. And he left the oxen, and ran after Elijah, and said, "Let me please kiss my father and my mother, and I will go after you." And he said to him, "Go, return, for what have I done to you?" And he returned from after him. And he took the yoke of oxen, and slaughtered them. And with the gear of the oxen he cooked the meat for them. And he gave the people, and they ate. And he rose and followed Elijah, and ministered to him. End of chapter 19. Alright, so we're continuing with the story of Elijah the prophet. So recall that last time he made a fool of all of the gods of the Asherah and Baal. He basically made them look like a bunch of fools, and then had them all killed, because he proved that the God of Israel was indeed the most powerful. So, Jezebel, wife of Ahab, source of trouble, she finds out from her husband, and she sends a strongly worded threat to Elijah saying that just as you did to the prophets, I'm going to have done to you. So he gets scared, he runs for his life, he goes to Beersheba, and he drops off his servant, right? And then he goes off into the desert to die. So he goes and basically sits under the tree, and as he reflects on all this, he's had enough. Remember, he was in exile for a couple years, and now he's being threatened again, and he's just kind of tapping out, and so he goes to sleep. Well, the angel shows up and awakens him and tells him to eat, and looks like it prepared food for him. Or someone did. Someone prepared him food, right? A divine gift of food. So he eats and obeys, and he's told once, by the angel, arise and eat, the journey is too much for you. So he's telling him this because he's about to go on a very long journey to get to where he needs to go. And it's not going to be something he can do on an empty stomach. So he eats the meal, and then he goes and he marches out toward Mount Horeb. It takes 40 days and 40 nights to do so. And while he's in the cave, he's staying there, and then he gets the word of God to him. He receives a prophecy. And he is asked, "What are you doing? What are you doing here?" And his response is, "I have been zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have torn down your altars, and they have killed your prophets by the sword, and I have remained alone, and they seek my life to take it." So he's basically saying, I've been faithful, but I'm here because I'm scared. That's really what he's saying. Like, I'm the only one left. Everybody else abandoned you, but I'm still faithful to you, and now they're seeking my life, so that's why I'm here. That's why I ran away. And God tells him, go stand out in the mountain before the Lord. And it says, the Lord passes, a great and strong wind, splitting mountains and shattering boulders before the Lord. The Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake, and not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, fire, not in the fire. After the fire, a still small sound. So this all to say that God is not earth, wind, or fire, but he controls these things, is my interpretation of this. These are his to command, but he is not exhausted by them, for he remains even after those things have dwindled. Now, as he hears this, it says he wraps his face in his mantle. So by wrapping his face, there are two things to consider here. One, is he hiding his face so that nobody will recognize him? Yes, that's possible. But let's be more clear on this also. He's not going to gaze upon the presence of God, right? That would be dangerous. So we have both of these angles to consider here for why he would cover his face. Now, once again, he is asked, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" as he does this and steps out of the cave. And he repeats the exact same words about being zealous and how Israel forsook the covenant and how the prophets are killed and I'm the only one left. And so he tells him, "Go, return to your way to the desert of Damascus. You shall come and anoint Hazael to be king over Aram." And so he's basically telling him that he's going to be appointing the new king of the Arameans. Next, it's going to be for Israel. It shall be a man named Yehu. He's going to be appointed king of Israel. And for the prophets, basically the last thing is that Elijah, he's tapping out, right? He's saying, I can't handle this anymore. So God is showing him mercy, and he's saying, I'm going to let you take this guy, Elisha, right, the son of Shaphat from Abel-Meholah, you shall anoint to be a prophet in your stead. So I'm going to let you pick out or go recruit your replacement. And so lastly, he notes that those who escape the sword of Hazael will be killed by Yehu, and those who survive Yehu will be killed by Elisha. All in all, I will leave 7,000 in Israel, the knees that did not kneel to the Baal, and every mouth that did not kiss him. So basically, God's saying, I'm going to leave over the ones that were faithful to me, but it looks like we're about to clean house again. Uh-oh. So from here, he goes and he finds Elisha, son of Shaphat, and it says he's plowing. He's got 12 yoke were before him, and he was with the 12, right? So he's got these 12 oxen, and there are 12. Well, isn't that a significant number to the children of Israel, right? And it says that he was with the 12th, so he's among them. That's the symbolism of this. So Elijah goes and he throws his mantle over him, and he's basically saying, you're coming with me, kid. And the response is, please wait, let me say goodbye to my parents. And so Elijah says, okay, go ahead. And so from this, he takes the oxen and he slaughters them, and he cooks a meal and feeds the people, and then he goes on his way with Elijah. So that's essentially what's going on here. Elijah has now Elisha, his new right hand, who will be succeeding him as prophet. Now we move on to chapter 20, verse 1, in Kings 1. And Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, gathered all his army, and 32 kings with him, and horses and chariots, and he went up and besieged Samaria, and waged war with it. And he sent messengers to Ahab, the king of Israel, to the city. And he said to him, Thus said Ben-Hadad, Your silver and gold are mine, your beautiful wives and children are mine. And the king of Israel answered him and said, As you say, my master, the king, I am yours as well as all that is mine. And the messengers returned and said, Thus said Ben-Hadad, As I have sent to you, saying, Your silver and your gold, your wives and your children you shall give to me. But at this time tomorrow I will send my servants to you, and they will search your house and the houses of your servants, and anything you prize they will put in their hands and take it away. And the king of Israel summoned all the elders of the land and said, Please realize and see that this man is looking to cause harm. For he has sent to me for my wives, my sons, and my silver and gold, and I have not denied him. And all the elders and all the people said to him, Do not obey, and do not consent. And he said to the messengers of Ben-Hadad, Tell your master, the king, all that you have sent to your servant at first I will do, but this matter I cannot do. And the messengers went, and they brought back the message to him. And Ben-Hadad sent to him and said, So shall the gods do to me, and so shall they continue if the earth of Samaria suffice for the footsteps of all the people who are with me. And the king of Israel answered and said, Say, one who girds the sword shall not boast as one who ungirds the sword. And it was as he heard these words, as he was drinking, he and the kings who were with him in pavilions, that he said to his servants, Lay on. And they laid siege to the city. And behold, a certain prophet approached Ahab, the king of Israel, and said, So said the Lord, Have you seen all this great multitude? Behold, I am giving them into your hands today, and you will know that I am the Lord. And Ahab said, With whom? And he said, Thus said the Lord, With the youths of the governors of the provinces. And he said, Who will commandeer the battle? And he responded, You. And he counted the youths of the governors of the provinces, and they were 232. And afterwards he counted all the people, all the children of Israel, 7,000. And they went out at noon, and Ben-Hadad was drinking himself drunk in the pavilions, he and the kings, the 32 kings who aided him. And the youths of the governors of the provinces went out first. And Ben-Hadad sent out, and they told him, saying, Men have come out of Samaria. And he said, If for peace they have come out, seize them alive. If for war they have come out, alive you shall seize them. And it was these who had come out of the city, the youths of the governors of the provinces, and the army which was after them. And they killed every man his opponent. The Arameans fled, and Israel chased them. And Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, escaped on horseback with horsemen. And the king of Israel went out and struck the horses, and the chariots, and inflicted upon Aram a great defeat. And the prophet approached the king of Israel, and said to him, Go strengthen yourself, and know and see what you shall do, for at the return of the year the king of Aram will come up against you. And the servants of the king of Aram said to him, A god of mountains is their god, therefore they overpowered us. However, if we fight them in the plains, you will see if we will not overpower them. And do this thing, remove the kings each man from his place, and place officers in their place. And you shall number for yourself an army, like the army that fell from you, and horse for horse, and chariot for chariot, and we will fight against them in the plains. You will see if we will not overpower them. And he heeded them, and did so. And it was at the return of the year that Ben-Hadad counted the Arameans, and he went up to Aphek to war with the children of Israel. And the children of Israel were counted and provisioned, and they went to meet them. And the children of Israel encamped against them like 2 flocks of goats, whereas the Arameans filled the land. And the man of God approached and said to the king of Israel, and he said, Thus said the Lord, because the Arameans said that the God of mountains is the Lord, and he is not the God over the valleys, I will deliver all this great multitude into your hand, and you will know that I am the Lord. And they were encamped opposite each other for 7 days. And it was on the 7th day that the men of battle drew closer, and the children of Israel killed of Aram 100,000 footmen in 1 day. And the survivors fled to Aphek, to the city, and the wall fell on the 27,000 men who had survived. Ben-Hadad fled, and came into the city into a chamber within a chamber. And his servants said to him, Behold, we have now heard that the kings of the house of Israel are kindly kings. Let us put sackcloth on our loins, and ropes on our heads, and let us go out to the king of Israel. Perhaps he will spare your life. So they girded sackcloth on their loins and the ropes on their heads, and they came to the king of Israel and said, Your servant Ben-Hadad said, Please may my life be spared. And he said, Is he still alive? He is my brother. And the people took it for an omen, and they hastened and caught it from him and said, Your brother Ben-Hadad. And he said, Come and take him. Ben-Hadad went out to him, and he helped him climb up into the chariot. And he said to him, The cities which my father took from your father I will return, and you shall make streets for yourself in Damascus, as my father had made in Samaria. And I will, said Ahab, release him with this treaty. And he forged with him a treaty, and he released him. And a certain man of the disciples of the prophet said to his friend, By the word of the Lord, strike me now. And the man refused to hit him. And he said to him, Because you have not obeyed the Lord, who you depart from me, a lion will strike you. And he went away from him, and a lion found him and struck him. And he found another man, and he said, Strike me, please. And the man struck him, striking and wounding him. And the prophet went and waited for the king on the way, and disguised himself with his headband over his eyes. And it was when the king was passing that he cried out to the king, and he said, Your servant went out in the thick of battle, and behold, a man turned aside. And he brought to me a man, and said, Watch this man for me. If he will be missing, your life will be instead of his life, or else you shall weigh out a talent of silver. And your servant was busy here and there, and he was gone. And the king of Israel said to him, So is your verdict. You have pronounced it. And he hastened and removed the headband from his eyes, and the king of Israel recognized him, that he was one of the prophets. And he, the prophet, said to him, Thus said the Lord, Because you have released the man whom I designated for destruction from your hand, it will be your life instead of his life, and your people instead of his people. And the king of Israel went to his home sad and upset, and he came to Samaria. End of chapter 20. So a recap, we have a war between Ahab and Ben-Hadad. This starts with Ben-Hadad, the king of the Arameans, gathering up his army and 32 kings, so he's got a nice coalition, and they besiege Samaria. So Ahab is now pinned inside of the city, and he receives a message from the messengers that say, basically, these are the terms of surrender. You're going to give me your silver and your gold, your wives, and your children. So I'm taking all of the things that are important to you as booty for having lost this war. And he says, I accept the terms. So then the messenger goes back, and then he comes back with another message. Also, my servants are going to go inside of all of your property, and anything you prize, they will put in their hands and take it away. So he's going to strip him of everything. Now, in response to this has gone too far. He consented to the first terms, but these second terms are too much. And so what he does is he calls up the elders of Israel for counsel, and he basically says, this is what I offered, and I was fine with it, but now he's asking for both of these things. It's too much, isn't it? And they agree, and they say, yes, this is definitely too much. Do not obey, do not consent. And so he tells them he tells the messenger, tell Ben-Hadad, I said to the first thing I agree, but to the second thing I cannot agree. And so he comes back with the report, and Ben-Hadad sends a messenger to him, saying, So shall the gods do to me, and so shall they continue of the earth of Samaria suffice for the footsteps of all the people who are with me. So, in essence, what he's saying is, it's not enough. I need more than just the original terms, right? So shall the gods do to me, and so they shall continue. right? If the earth of Samaria suffice for the footsteps of all the people who are with me. So basically he's saying the cost of this campaign and all the effort, well, let's just say if I only accepted the land that I'm conquering, that would be insufficient of a victory. So that's the circumstance. In any case, King of Israel responds, say, one who girds the sword shall not boast as one who ungirds the sword. So basically, he's saying one who proffers peace shall not have this, or and one who doesn't proffer peace, they're not going to have the same boast. And really, Ben-Hadad is pushing it too far, whereas Ahab he's relenting. He's ending the war for the sake of his people, it seems like, and for himself. So, this is just too much. So in response, Ben-Hadad hears his response and says, okay, carry on. And they lay siege to the city. So a prophet approaches Ahab and tells him, have you seen all these people? This is the word of God, by the way. All those people out there, I'm giving them into your hand, and you will know that I am the Lord. And so Ahab says, with what army? And he tells him, with the youths of the governors of the provinces. Okay, well, who's going to lead them in battle? You are. Okay, so the king is going to lead this army. So he counts out everything. He's got 232 youths of the governors of the provinces, and then all the people of Israel, 7,000. Here we hear the same words, the number given to Elijah, 7,000. So they go out and they meet Ben-Hadad at noon, who's getting drunk in his pavilions, and I think they are not prepared. I mean, they're getting drunk. They don't expect this. This is a totally unheard of, what? The people are leaving the city to come attack us? Well, they're obviously merry and drunk, so they are not prepared. So anyway, he says, if they've come out for peace, take them alive, and if they've come out for war, take them alive. So he's basically saying, we're capturing them either way. So at this, they kill the entire army, or just about everybody who they're up against. All their opponents are defeated. And it says Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, escapes on horseback with horsemen. So he flees from the field of battle. Now, continuing beyond here, it says that the king of Israel goes out and he strikes the horses and the chariots and inflicts a great defeat upon the Arameans. And then he is told, go strengthen yourself. A prophet approaches him and says, listen to this. In a year, the king of Aram is going to come back. You have a year to prepare. And the king of the Arameans, his servants tell him, well, the God of Israel, he's actually a God of mountains, so that's why this went down the way it did. We were fighting him on his home turf. So if we fight him on a field in the plains, it'll be a totally different scenario. They're not going to have their God on their side. That's not his special domain. And so they give him the advice, take out all the kings and instead place officers. So they're building up the army and really fortifying things, right? No more merriment. We're going to focus for war. Get yourself an army just as big as the one that you lost, and we're going to fight them in the plains and win. So he goes, okay, I accept your counsel. So a year comes around. Ben-Hadad arrives with his Arameans in tow, and he goes to Aphek to war with the children of Israel. The Israelites are ready. They meet them, and they encamp against them. It says like 2 flocks of goats, whereas the Arameans filled the land. So overwhelming numbers here. But they've got God on their side. So the man of God approaches and says, thus said the Lord, because the Arameans said that the God of the mountains is the Lord, he is not the God over the valleys, I will deliver all this great multitude into your hand, and you'll know that I am the Lord. So basically, they're being punished for having the audacity to suggest that God is not God over everything. So 7 days, it's an encampment before they finally start the battle, right? Just imagine 2 camps waiting to start. And then finally, on the 7th day, the battling begins. And it says 100,000 footmen of Aram are killed in 1 day. The survivors flee to the city of Aphek, and the wall collapses on 27,000 men who had survived. Ben-Hadad, the king, he flees, and he goes to hide inside of the city into a chamber within a chamber. So he's now basically hiding. He's like, oh man, I totally screwed up. This is bad news. His servants tell him, we've heard that the kings of Israel are kind. They're merciful. So why don't we make ourselves look all beat up and ruined, and we'll go talk to him, and maybe he'll spare your life. So they do exactly that. They go out looking very ragged and poor, and they say, "Your servant Ben-Hadad, please may my life be spared." They're speaking on behalf of their king Ben-Hadad, and Ahab responds, "Is he still alive? He is my brother." So they hear this word and they jump on it. It says, the people took it for an omen, and they hastened and caught it from him and said, "Your brother, Ben-Hadad." And he says, "Come and take him." So at this, he welcomes Ben-Hadad instead of taking his life. And not only this, he says, "The cities that my father took from your father, I'm going to give back to you. And you shall make streets for yourself in Damascus, as my father had made in Samaria. And I will release him with this treaty." So he declares that he's going to set the king free of King of Aram. He's going to let him go. So the prophets, they've got a disciple, and he goes, "By the word of the Lord, strike me now," to his friend. He asks his friend, like, "Please hit me. God's telling you got to hit me." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to hit you." And he's like, "Well, God told me to tell you to hit me, and because you did not obey, because you're not following the word of God, a lion is going to strike you." So he leaves, and what happens? The lion kills him, or finds him and strikes him. It doesn't say it kills him, but he says, "Because this happened, a lion will attack you." So then he finds another guy, and he says, "Please strike me." And he does. So he gets wounded. From here, the prophet waits, and he covers himself with a headband over his eyes so that he won't be recognized. And when the king goes by, he cries out and says, "Your servant went out into the thick of battle, and behold, a man turned aside, and he brought to me a man and said, 'Watch this man for me. If he will be missing, your life will be instead of his life, or else you shall weigh out a talent of silver.' And your servant was busy here and there, and he was gone. And the king of Israel said to him, 'So is your verdict. You have pronounced it.'" And so this is a nice trick that the prophets will often do. This happened with David as well when he took Bathsheba from Uriah. Right? The prophet gives a metaphor. He tells a parable or a scenario, and the king hears it and renders judgment, not knowing he's rendering judgment upon himself. And so he finds out, reveals the true nature, his identity. He pulls off his disguise. And of course, once he sees his face with no disguise, Ahab realizes, "Oh, this is a prophet that I know." And so he tells him, "Thus said the Lord, because you have released the man whom I designated for destruction from your hand, it will be your life instead of his life, and your people instead of his people." And the king of Israel went to his home sad and upset, and he came to Samaria. So this is much like what happened with Saul when he spared Amalek. This was his punishment. God had designated for this king to be killed. Ahab spared his life and everything was fine, even though this man disgraced the name of God. So God is punishing Ahab, and the judgment is, because you did not take his life, I'll take your life and your people. And the king, it says, is sad and upset when he gets home. Aww. Well, lesson learned, huh? Anyway, we'll go ahead and move on to chapter 21, verse 1 of the book of Kings 1. "And it was after these happenings that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, next to the palace of Ahab the king of Samaria. And Ahab spoke to Naboth, saying, 'Give me your vineyard, and I will have it for a vegetable garden, since it is near my house. And I will give you instead of it a vineyard which is better than it. If it pleases you, I will give you money its worth.' And Naboth said to Ahab, 'The Lord forbid me to give the inheritance of my forefathers to you.' And Ahab came to his house sad and upset because of the matter that Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him, and said, 'I will not give you the inheritance of my forefathers.' He lay on his bed, turned away his face, and did not eat bread. And Jezebel his wife came to him and spoke to him, 'For what is it that your spirit has left you, and you do not eat bread?' He spoke to her, 'For I have spoken to Naboth the Jezreelite, and I have said to him, Give me your vineyard for money, or if you wish, I will give you a vineyard instead of it. And he said, I will not give you my vineyard.' And Jezebel his wife said to him, 'Do you now exercise kingly power over Israel?
Arise and eat bread, and let your heart be merry. I will give you Naboth the Jezreelite's vineyard.
And she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal. And she sent the letters to the elders and the officials who were in his city, who sat with Naboth. And she wrote letters saying, Proclaim a fast, and place Naboth in the forefront of the people. And set up 2 wicked men opposite him, and they will testify against him, saying, You have cursed God and the king. And they shall remove him, and stone him, and he will die. And the men of his city did, the elders and the officials that dwelled in his city, as Jezebel sent to them, as it was written in the letters that she had sent to them. They proclaimed a fast, and they set Naboth at the head of the people. And the 2 wicked men came and sat opposite him, and the wicked men testified against Naboth in front of the people, saying, Naboth cursed God and the king. And they took him out of the city and stoned him with stones, and he died. And they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth has been stoned and died. And it was when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and that he died, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Get up and take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money, for Naboth is not living, but dead. And it was as Ahab heard that Naboth had died, that Ahab got up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise and go down toward Ahab the king of Israel, who is in Samaria. Behold, he is in Naboth's vineyard, where he has gone down to take possession of it. And you shall speak to him, saying, So said the Lord, Have you murdered and also inherited? And you shall speak to him, saying, Thus said the Lord, In the place the dogs have licked the blood of Naboth, shall the dogs lick your blood, even yours. And Ahab said to Elijah, Have you found me, my enemy? And he said, I have found you, because you have sold yourself to do what is bad in the eyes of the Lord. I will bring disaster upon you, and I will expunge after you, and I will cut off from Ahab every male child, and those that are restrained, and those that are free in Israel. And I will make your house as the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and the house of Baasha, the son of Ahijah, because of the anger which you have angered me, and have caused Israel to sin. And also, concerning Jezebel, the Lord spoke, saying, The dogs will eat Jezebel in the valley of Jezreel. The dead of Ahab in the city will be eaten by the dogs, and the dead in the fields of the fowl the sky will eat. But there was none like Ahab who had sold himself to do bad in the eyes of the Lord, that Jezebel his wife instigated him. And he very abominably went after idols, like all that the Amorites had done, whom the Lord had expelled from before the children of Israel. And it was when Ahab heard these words that he tore his garments, and put sackcloth on his flesh, and he fasted, and he lay in the sackcloth, and walked slowly. And it was the word of the Lord to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Have you seen that Ahab is submissive to me? Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring the disaster in his days. In the days of his son I will bring the disaster on his house. End of chapter 21. So let's recap here. There is an incident that takes place. Ahab really wants this land that's nearby, and it belongs to a guy named Naboth the Jezreelite. It's a vineyard. Now, this is very convenient location, which is why Ahab wants it. It's located near to him. And he says, I'm going to make it a vegetable garden since it's near my house. And I will give you, instead of it, a vineyard which is better. If it pleases you, I will give you money it's worth. So he's basically saying, like, I want this land. I will compensate you with a better vineyard or money worth the vineyard. And Naboth says to him, I can't do it because I'm not allowed to sell my inheritance. Now, keep in mind, this is from the Torah. You can't transfer your inheritance to another person. I mean, the Jubilee year would be like, you could lease it, but you can't sell it. So it's basically, he's trying to trade it, and he's telling him, I can't do that according to the word of the Lord. So Ahab is all boo-hoo again, and he goes home and he's all emotional. He won't eat. He's just so sad. Because he can't have this land. And Jezebel's like, oh, my husband, why are you not eating? Why are you sad? And he's like, it's just, I want that land, and he won't give it to me. And so she's like, aren't you the king? Why are you worried about this? Here's what I'm going to do. So she takes the king's seal, writes a letter to the elders in the town that Naboth lives in, and she declares to have him tried for cursing God and the king. And then they put 2 corrupt witnesses against him. This is another prohibition in the Torah, by the way. And they have him put to death. And he, of course, he comes up guilty because it's a crooked court, crooked court. So he's stoned to death. Now, the biggest question here is, why would God allow this? Why would God allow Naboth to be wrongfully killed in this court? There'd be a discussion to be had that he had done something else in his life that this was his punishment for doing. And by being stoned and killed for this, he was basically wiping the slate clean of his karmic debt. That's, I mean, look, you could call that cope if you want. Frankly, it sucks. This situation sucks that this was allowed to pass, that the corrupt judges and court and elders and whatever let this happen, that they let all of this happen in Israel, but it happened. And in response, God basically is going to punish for this. So the specific rule is make everybody fast, place Naboth in the court, right? Have him tried. He's put to death. Then she comes back and says, honey, guess what? Naboth is dead. You can go have his land. Yay! And so he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess it all worked out. And he goes to take the land. And Elijah suddenly gets summoned once again. The word of the Lord comes to Elijah, tells him, go down to Ahab, who is in Samaria. Behold, he's in Naboth's vineyard where he's going to take possession of it. And you're going to ask him, have you murdered and also inherited? So said the Lord. Tell him that in the place that the blood of Naboth has been licked by dogs, that's where your blood shall be licked. And not just that, your wife Jezebel too. So when he gets there, he looks at Elijah, and Ahab is just kind of like, it's almost cinematic. Have you found me, my enemy? It's just like, oh man, he knows he's about to get it. So he says, I have found you because you have sold yourself to do what is bad in the eyes of the Lord. And so he said, I'm going to cut off, you're going to be erased from this entire nation. I will cut off from Ahab every male child and those that are restrained and those that are free in Israel. So he's basically saying, you're going to have everything taken away from you. Not just your lineage, but also every person who serves under you. I'm taking away everything. And your house will be as the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and the house of Baasha, son of Ahijah, because of the anger which you have angered the Lord and caused Israel to sin. So also Jezebel, yeah, she's going to be eaten in the valley of Jezreel by dogs. Look forward to it. The dead of Ahab in the city, eaten by dogs. Dead in the field, the fowl of the sky will eat. It says, there was none like Ahab who had sold himself to do bad in the eyes of the Lord, that Jezebel, his wife, instigated in him. So basically, this is truly the worst sinner of the kings. But Ahab hears all this, and he basically starts, atonement. He cuts it, he tears his clothing, lays in sackcloth, fasts, and walks slowly. And the Lord sees this and says, okay, well, you see how he is showing his fealty to me after everything? Because he's humbled himself, all that stuff we just discussed, we're going to do it to his son. There we go. So, sins of the father. But just like with Solomon, it's not going to happen in your generation. It'll be in the next generation. Pretty harrowing stuff. It's honestly, like I said, the worst thing about that chapter is just what happens to Naboth all for the land, and that the whole courts were so corrupted, and it's tragic that this happened to this poor guy. Anyway, moving on to the final chapter of the book of Kings, chapter 22, verse 1. And they lived peacefully 3 years. There were no wars between Aram and Israel. And it was during the 3rd year that Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came down to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel said to his servants, Do you know that Ramoth Gilead is ours, and we are doing nothing about taking it out of the hands of the king of Aram? And he said to Jehoshaphat, Will you go with me to do battle in Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, I am as you are, my people is as your people, my horses are as your horses. And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, Please inquire today the word of the Lord. And the king of Israel gathered the prophets, about 400 men, and said to them, Shall I go on to Ramoth Gilead to do battle, or shall I refrain? And they said, Ascend, and the Lord will deliver it into the hands of the king. And Jehoshaphat said, Is there no other prophet of the Lord here from whom we may inquire? And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, There is one more man from whom to inquire the word of the Lord. But I hate him, for he does not prophesy good about me, only bad. Micaiah, son of Imlah. And Jehoshaphat said, The king should not say so. And the king of Israel summoned one eunuch and said, Bring Micaiah, the son of Imlah, at once. Now the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, were seated each on his throne, dressed in their attire, in a threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Samaria. And all the prophets were prophesying before them. And Zedekiah, the son of Hananiah, made himself iron horns. And he said, So said the Lord, With these shall you gore the Arameans until you destroy them completely. And all the prophets were prophesying so, saying, Go up to Ramoth Gilead in triumph, and the Lord will deliver it into the king's hand. Now the messenger who had gone to summon Micaiah spoke to him, saying, Behold, the words of the prophet are unanimously favorable to the king. Please let your word be like the word of one of them, and you shall speak favorably. And Micaiah said, As the Lord lives, for what the Lord will say to me, that will I speak. And he came to the king, and the king said to him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to war, or shall we refrain? And he said to him, Go up and triumph, and may the Lord deliver it into the king's hand. And the king said to him, How many times must I adjure you that you shall not speak to me but truth in the name of the Lord? And he said, I saw all the Israelites scattered over the mountain like sheep who have no shepherd. And the Lord said, These have no master. Let them return each one to his house in peace. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, Did I not say to you that he does not prophesy good concerning me, only bad? And he said, Therefore, listen to the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord seated on his throne, and all the host of heaven were standing by him on his right and on his left. And the Lord said, Who will entice Ahab so that he will go up and fall in Ramoth Gilead? One said in this manner, and another one said in that manner. And a certain spirit came forth, and stood before the Lord, and said, I will entice him. And the Lord said to him, How? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, You will entice, and you will prevail. Go forth, and do so. And now behold, the Lord has placed a lying spirit in the mouth of all these prophets of yours, whereas the Lord spoke evil concerning you. And Zedekiah the son of Hananiah approached and struck Micaiah on the cheek, and he said, Which way did the Spirit of the Lord pass from me to speak with you? And Micaiah said, Behold, you will see on that day that you will come into a chamber within a chamber to hide. And the king of Israel said, Take Micaiah, and return him to Ammon, the mayor of the city, and to Joash the king's son. And you shall say, So said the king, Place this one in prison, and feed him a scant amount of bread and a scant amount of water until I come back in peace. And Micaiah said, If you will return in peace, the Lord did not speak to me. And he said, All the nations listen. The king of Israel and Jehoshaphat the king of Judah went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, and you wear your regal garb. The king of Israel disguised himself and went into battle. The king of Aram commanded the 32 officers of his chariot, saying, Attack neither the small nor great, except the king of Israel only. And it was when the officers of the chariot saw Jehoshaphat that they said, This is but the king of Israel. They turned upon him to attack him, and Jehoshaphat cried out. And it was when the officers of the chariots saw that he was not the king of Israel that they turned back from going after him. A man drew his bow innocently and hit the king of Israel between the scales and the coat of mail. And he said to his charioteer, Turn your hand and carry me out of the camp, for I have become sick. The battle became more intense that day, and the king was standing in the chariot against the Arameans. He died at evening, and the blood of his wounds ran out inside of the chariot. A cry passed through the camp as the sun went down, saying, "Everyone to his city, every person to his country." And the king died and was brought to Samaria, and the king was buried in Samaria. And he washed the chariot at the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked his blood, and they washed the weapons there as according to the word of the Lord which he had spoken. The remainder of the deeds of Ahab, and all that he accomplished, and the ivory palace which he built, and all the cities that he built, are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. Ahab lay with his forefathers, and Ahaziah his son reigned in his place. Jehoshaphat, son of Asa, reigned over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab, the king of Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years of age when he became king. He reigned 25 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi. He went in all the ways of his father Asa. He did not veer from those ways, doing what was proper in the eyes of the Lord. However, the high places of worship he did not remove. The people were still sacrificing and offering in the high places. Jehoshaphat made peace with the king of Israel. The rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat and his heroic deeds that he performed and the wars he fought are written in the Chronicles of the kings of Judah. The remainder of the prostitutes that remained from the days of Asa his father he purged from the land. There was no king in Edom, a governor was king. Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but he did not go since the ships were broken at Ezion-Geber. Then Ahaziah the son of Ahab said to Jehoshaphat, "Let my servants go with your servants in the ships," but Jehoshaphat did not want. Jehoshaphat lay with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father, and Jehoram his son reigned in his stead. Ahaziah the son of Ahab reigned over Israel and Samaria in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and he ruled over Israel for 2 years. He did what was bad in the eyes of the Lord. He went in the path of his father, in the path of his mother, and in the path of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who had caused Israel to sin. He worshipped the Baal, he bowed to him, and he provoked the Lord God of Israel to anger, like all that his father had done. End of the Book of Kings. So here we conclude chapter 22 from the first Book of Kings. Let's get a recap and wrap things up for this week's episode. So 3 years there's peace between Israel and Aram. On the 3rd year, Jehoshaphat, who is the king of Judah, remember, Judah and Israel have 2 separate kings. They are basically 2 kingdoms, right? So he comes and he visits the king of Israel. So Judah and Israel are having a nice little visit. And the king of Israel, Ahab, says to his servants, "Don't you know that Ramoth Gilead is ours, and we're not doing anything to take it back from the king of Aram?" So he tells Jehoshaphat, "Will you go and do battle alongside me? Will you be my ally in this war?" And Jehoshaphat says to him, "I will fight alongside you. I am as you are, my people are as your people, my horses are your horses." And so what we see here is an Israel united. Now, unfortunately, it's not going to quite go so smoothly. What happens here is that Jehoshaphat asks to get some prophets to do some prophesying. Let's find out, let's ask the soothsayers here, right? Not that they're soothsayers, they're prophets, but he gathers all the prophets, like 400 of them, and he says, "Will we go on this campaign?" And they all respond and they say, "Ascend and the Lord will deliver it into the hands of the king." So Jehoshaphat seems not convinced, and he says, "Is there no other prophet of the Lord here from whom we may inquire?" So this is interesting, right? We've got 400 men all saying loosely the same thing, but the king of Judah is not satisfied. Why? Probably because there's not enough detail. True prophets with good prophecy, they tend to have a lot more detail. That's my assumption is why Jehoshaphat had this good inclination. Also, keep in mind, he is following after the ways of his father Asa. He is a good king and follows in the ways of David. So there's a real chance here this guy's got some talent. In any case, they find one last guy. The king of Israel he tells him, "Yeah, there is one more, but he hates me. All he does is give me bad news." And Jehoshaphat says the king should not say so. So in other words, he's like, "No, you shouldn't say that about this guy." The reality is you're bringing this on yourself is the real subtext here. So they get this guy, Micaiah, the son of Imlah. And so the 2 kings are sitting together on their thrones. And Zedekiah, son of Hanina, he brings out iron horns and he says, "With these shall you gore the Arameans until you destroy them completely," right? So, very good, very good. And all the prophets are saying, "Yes, go to the war, go win. It will be delivered into the king's hand." Now, what is interesting here, what is so interesting here, this is the key. And I think this is also the wisdom of Jehoshaphat, is the same wisdom that was missing from Croesus of Greco-Persian history. So this is a very famous story, and I'm giving this tangent because it's such a good parallel here. King Croesus challenges Cyrus, the Persian, because he goes to the oracle and he says, should I go to war with Persia? And the oracle's response is, if you go to war, it will mean the end of a great empire, or the end of a great kingdom. And so in response to this, Croesus, he thinks, that's pretty good. That's a good verdict. If I go to war with Cyrus, it'll mean the end of a mighty empire. So he's assuming that it's about Cyrus's empire, not his own. Yehoshaphat here has a similar situation. All these different prophets are saying, the Lord will deliver it into the king's hand. It doesn't say which king. Well, the Arameans have a king too, don't they? Now, beyond this, we have Zedekiah, son of Hanina. He says, with these iron horns on the helmet, you shall gore the Arameans until you destroy them completely. Well, that's a little bit more specific, but once again, I don't know. We'll see. So Micaiah shows up, and they tell him that the words of all the other prophets are unanimously good news. Micaiah shows up and tells them, I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm being told. And this is the key. He says, as the Lord lives, for what the Lord will say to me, that which I will speak. Right? So this is a very good, important opening line. And he asks him, do we go to war or not? And he responds and says, go up in triumph. May the Lord deliver it into the king's hand. So this is not an answer. This is just saying, go up and win, and may the Lord deliver it, right? That's not what I asked you. Tell me the truth. So he's like, okay. I saw the Israelites all scattered, running around like sheep without a shepherd. The Lord said, these have no master. Let them return each one to his house in peace. And so the king of Israel is like, see? What did I tell you? This guy only gives me bad news. And he responds, therefore, listen to the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord seated on his throne. All the hosts of heaven were by him on his right and left. So he's basically recounting the full prophecy. He saw God sitting on his throne, and he asks his royal hosts, the king's heavenly court, he says, who shall entice Ahab to go to war? And one of them says, I've got an idea. It'll be me. I'm going to put I'm going to put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these prophets, whereas the Lord, he's spoken evil of you in truth, but I'm going to tell all those prophets a false prophecy so that you will be encouraged to go to battle. Now, in response to this, Zedekiah, son of Hanina, the one who made the horns, he walks up and he smacks Micaiah on the face, and he says, oh yeah? Which way did the Spirit of the Lord pass from me to speak with you? So he's basically challenging him, and in response, he says, behold, you will see on that day that you will come into a chamber within a chamber to hide. So the king of Israel does not like this prophecy. He basically banishes him to prison to Ammon, and the mayor of the city, and the Yoash, the king's son, right, have him locked up in prison and feed him next to nothing until I come back. And he responds to him, listen, if you come back, that means that the Lord didn't actually speak to me. He's basically telling him, you're not coming back, dude. So with this, it's time for the war. The two kings are going together, and it's clear Ahab has a plan. He says, I'm going to disguise myself and go into battle, and you wear your regal garb. So what he's basically doing is, this is probably an attempt to avoid being taken by the enemy. He's going to hide amongst the troops as a normal soldier, maybe an officer, but a charioteer, while the king of Judah, Yehoshaphat, commands the head of the army. So it's time for war. Now, as they are going out, the king of Aram, he commands the 32 officers of his chariot, saying, you're not going to focus on anything but the king of Israel. So this is a precision strike against the king of Israel. Why? Well, I think here it's because the king of Aram is personally very upset that after their treaty, he's suddenly being attacked. So he's punishing only the king. Now, he doesn't know that the king is not the king right now. So they go to take the king's head, and they realize this is not actually Ahab, this is another guy, this is Yehoshaphat. And so they just totally like go away from him. They don't even kill him. They just like, oh, nope, not our guy. It's really strange, but yeah, these are their orders, right? And it also shows God's involvement in this affair. Now, at this, it says there was a person who innocently shot and hit the king of Israel with his bow, right, between the scales and the coat of the mail. So he got hit with a stray arrow right in the middle of his armor, and he's fatally wounded. And so he basically, for the rest of the day, he keeps on fighting, and he dies from blood loss and the wound. And at the end of the day, he's dead. So his blood spills into the chariot and spills onto the ground. And it says that the pool of blood, that the dogs came up and they licked it according to the word of the Lord which has been spoken. The king died and was brought to Samaria. They buried him in Samaria. Everybody is wailing, oh, and they all are told to go home, just as the prophecy said. And at this, he washed the chariot at the pool of Samaria, was where the dog licked his blood. The weapons were washed there. And then from this, it says that all else that Ahab did and accomplished, and the ivory palace which he built, and all the cities that he built, are written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Israel. He lay with his forefathers. Ahaziah, his son, took over in his place. Yehoshaphat, son of Asa, reigned over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab. He was 35 years old when he became king. He reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. His mother was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi. He went in all the ways of his father Asa, so once again, he was a perfect, good king, did what he was supposed to do, just like David and just like Asa. But he did not remove the high places of worship. The people were still sacrificing and offering in the high places. So when it refers to this, it may be referring to the alien offerings. Nevertheless, it says he made peace with the king of Israel. This is also a big deal. Peace between all of the Israelites. The rest of the acts of his life and his deeds are recorded in the Chronicles. He got rid of all the prostitutes in the land. It says in Edom, there was no king. It was just a governor. And then also there was a series of ships ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but he did not go since the ships were broken at Ezion-Geber. This probably means that for some reason or another, it just didn't happen. Ahaziah, son of Ahab, said, let my servants go with your servants, but he said no. He died and lay with his fathers, buried in the city of David. His father, Yehoram, his son, took over. Ahaziah, son of Ahab, took over in the 17th year of Yehoshaphat, and he ruled for only 2 years. It says he did what was bad in the eyes of the Lord. He went in the path of his father and the path of his mother, in the path of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who had caused Israel to sin. So, very bad. Also, he worshipped the Baal, bowed to him, and provoked the Lord, God of Israel, to anger like all that his father had done. In conclusion, this is a wrap on the book of Kings. Quite a few kings we've learned about. All in all, there's so much straying from God that it's like almost unrealistic. Like, how could it be this bad? But it is. It is this bad. So it's painful to read. At least the people of Judah have good kings now that are following the correct way. We'll see what happens with Elijah. But until next time, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2, ending the Book of Kings 1. And we hope to see you next time. Until then, as always, Baruch Hashem.